Hey everybody, this is Introduction to Counseling, and we're going to be talking about the counselor, and then we're going to talk about the client and the things that each bring to the counseling environment. So please hit like or dislike, hit the bell, subscribe, all that good stuff. It will help you and help me. Thank you. Bye. No, here's the here's a counselor. So counselors benefit from a number of characteristics. And these characteristics have been looked at over the decades and seen to be useful in creating a trusting atmosphere and allow for the expression of strong affect, the expression of fears that people have that ordinarily they would not discuss, and a sense of confidence that the work they're going to do with you is going to be fruitful. Okay, now, no one as a counselor has all of these attributes. These are things to just be honest about with yourself and work to increase. And that really is possible because these attributes are things we have inside us that maybe we don't use all that much. We can seek to identify these and augment them and practice them, yes? Sure we can. Sure we can. Some of us have more of some of these have more of that in little ways, but all of us have to work on this if we're counselors. The first one is respecting oneself. We have to have respect for ourselves, or we can't ask our clients to respect themselves. Open to change, making good choices, being authentic and sincere, living in the present, having an appreciation for differences, whatever those might be, having good boundaries, having good judgment. All of these things are useful, yes? Being calm and steady, being able to be patient and endure frustration, believing that what you do has meaning for others individually and for the world in general, being persistent, being knowledgeable, working on critical thinking skills, thinking clearly, in other words, being able to shift gears. This is a big one. So every client you see is in a different gear than you are, and at the moment you see them, a different gear than they may be in next week, you see. Okay, and then having good interpersonal skills. So many of these things are directly able to be worked on. Others, we need to say, let's pull that out of ourselves in a different way. Let's look at that and be honest about where we are with these and seek to augment those. Okay? Now, there are special skills that counselors have, and these are all things that we can learn, all of them, because they're skills. One is attending to, appropriately attend, not just paying attention to, but directly demonstrating that we are attending to them, both verbal and nonverbal expressions. Paraphrasing content and emotion that a client is telling you about or exhibiting. Being open. And if you're asked a direct question about yourself, answering it in a way that's not going to go too deeply within you. So somebody says, have you ever been divorced? Yeah, it's horrible. I've felt much of what you're saying you feel now. End of discussion. But that's openness. That's openness. Immediacy. In other words, here and now with a client. That's where a lot of work gets done, as opposed to talking about the past or talking about another time or the future about which hasn't happened. So, immediacy, here and now in the session. Attending to a client's ability and readiness to make changes, everyone being in a different place. Recognizing that the client has resources and allowing them to hear you say you know what those are because now you've checked with them on that. And you're saying that you really respect that that's great that they can do this or they know how to do this. Having an interactive approach, not a teaching approach. Some forms of therapy may look a little bit more like instruction at times, but really they are based in interaction and not teaching per se. So promoting hopefulness. Okay, so when someone says, "Do you think I'll get better?" you can say, "I think there's a great chance that you'll get better if you're ready to do this work. I can tell you from experience that that's the way it often, if not usually, goes." Okay. Therapeutic confrontation. So this is not in-your-face confrontation. This is, as we will learn in great detail later in the course, this is about calling someone's attention to something they may not directly see that they need to hear from you as a clarification. So someone says, "My wife nags me about drinking all the time. I can't even concentrate at work because of all her nagging." You could say, "So your drinking is connected to your wife's nagging, and those are interfering with your work." That's a confrontation. I'll let you think about that one. Okay? So, should a counselor receive therapy? Should they? How often? Why? When? Ever? Always? Periodically? Here's the rule of thumb. If you have something that's bothering you, now, talk to somebody. A supervisor, a fellow counselor that you have a trusting relationship with, or better yet, your own therapist. What's good for the goose is good for the gander. If you have ongoing issues that have required work in the past, continue that work. That's basically what you need to think about. Okay? All right. Do you get supervision? Should you? Well, you will. 2 to 4 years worth, or thereabouts, if you're doing an internship to get licensed. That's just part of the game. That's part of the deal. That's part of what you need and will benefit from. So, should you get some otherwise? Yes, you should consult with a supervisor whenever topics come up you don't know how to work with, you don't have experience working with. Go to workshops to learn more about it, read things about it, so that you're prepared. And unless you're adequately prepared, you shouldn't be using that technique or be working with that issue, except in the very short term. If that issue comes and goes quickly, then you don't have to be concerned about that. But if that's the issue and you don't have any experience or knowledge about it, then it would call to question whether you should be working with it with that client. Because we can only do work that we're qualified to do work with. Okay. So always remember that everyone's culture and subculture in particular is different from your own. Subculture can mean not just in a broad sense within the macro culture of a group of, let's say, non-English speaking citizens. That's not exactly what I'm usually referring to, but could include that. What I'm really referring to is a family subculture. It's very different than yours. It's a microculture, really. No one is like you. They don't see things the same way. You have to learn how people see things in order to help them. You cannot impose your assumptions about what they think and believe and can do and will do based on you. You can't do that. So you have to learn about them. You have to attend workshops, read, get supervision, ask your client. Okay. What will you face as a new counselor? Well, you'll face anxiety. There's no two ways around it. I'd be concerned if you didn't face any anxiety when you saw your first client. It just goes with the turf. Yeah. So that's one thing you'll experience. Another is whether you should disclose much about yourself. Those are boundary issues, and generally be open, but this is not about you, so you're not going to do counseling about you with someone else who's your client. Okay? And then encountering problems you don't know how to handle. That's acceptable for people in training. It's accepted that you will be in training. The client will know you're in training by virtue of your professional disclosure statement. Maintaining an openness. This is an issue. How open do you want to be? Can be and should be. Perfectionism. So a lot of people think there's a perfect thing to say at the perfect moment, and people who are perfectionists will leave a session or on the way home that day think, "Oh, I should have said that." Just let go of that. Understanding silence. I have a section in your workbook on understanding silence. Just remember this, that the silence belongs to the client, not to you, the counselor. Don't interrupt it unless it's necessary. And then handling demands from clients, scheduling demands, too many messages to you, both potentially texts or phone messages or messages into the clinic or whatever, okay? Those are issues to consider being prepared for. Be prepared too for stress and possible burnout. Burnout can have lots of different pieces of evidence for it, one of which is you're on the way to work as an intern or as a therapist, and you're trying to think of ways to not go. You're saying negative things about the day you're going to have and the clients you're going to see. You're exhausted. You're not sleeping well. You wake up wishing you didn't have to go to work. That kind of thing. Yeah, there are other ways to know burnout's approaching, but those are some of the big ones. Knowing whether or not your clients are getting better or got better. They may leave before they're done, or what happened. They may not respond to you if you ask them to come in for a session, see what's happening. And then some clients won't get better no matter what you do. If they start to not get better and don't improve, then a change needs to be made, either as you a therapist or the medication they're taking or both, or the approach you're taking. Anyway, openness is important in those situations, isn't it? And saying, I'm not seeing that you're getting better, or you think you're getting better. What do you think? I notice that you continue to sort of be very down in our sessions. And we're talking of, 2 months in, or whatever. I'm being very, very general here, not specific, okay? So these are all things to pay close attention to. And what I want to say to you just in general is you are your best resource. Not a book you read, not a little trick that you learned, not a technique that you learned. You are your best resource. Okay, coming up, the client.